Alright, in this month's episode, the theme song is based on a poem I wrote at age 6, entitled, It Would Be Great If I Were an Author. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 it would be great if I were an author. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, wait. I am an author! That is the theme song. Megazoic is published, folks. Buy on Amazon, support me. I'm so poor and lonely. I need money. Oh yeah, and also this is a dream come true that I've been wanting to do for a very long time, so I guess that's good, I guess. I know a lot of people thought that we'd step up our game after the last 2 theme songs. You were mistaken. You were all very much mistaken.
To be fair, unless we come up with like new games, how would we really up the ante on that?
Just more sound effects, more
I guess.
edits.
Well, I guess you could throw in sound effects in editing. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if you put
sound
that
effects.
in your...
Sound effects? Oh, I barely knew her. I've got a rim shop here.
Oh, Lord. So, I am imagining that age 6 you didn't have the, oh wait, I am an author line. So, but anyway,
yeah, well,
it's really cool. So, congratulations.
It was based off of that. Yeah, well, thank you. No problem. It's everything I ever dreamed it would be. I've sold, I don't know.
They're selling like hotcakes.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to tell you about exact sales figures. It's not really that much.
It's okay.
But that's okay. Like, it's not really that much, but that's okay. It's not to be expected at this point. I haven't really done a lot of advertising for it. That's going to be more close to the school year. I've self-published, so it'll be a bit.
I was about to say, anything is better than none.
Well, I've said, I mean, it's more than this, but let's say I've sold 20 copies, alright? I've joked with my dad, hey, that's 19 more than Van Gogh sold of his paintings in his life.
I don't know if that's particularly the most tasteful, but, because artists...
and by the way, the one was to his brother.
History lesson, folks, on the Writ. Anyways,
yep.
All right, well, we'll head to our usual segments. What will we rip off from this month?
And I will let you do the honors of beginning, David.
All right, thank you. I got a couple of things that I've been watching recently. One of them was a show, a very old show called Ultra 7, and... to explain just a little about it, it was a very early entry into the long-running Ultraman series. But
you and your Japanese watching stuff. I know you're in Japan, but...
Hey, it's a good way to study the language. Anyway,
I guess that's true. You have to learn... And also, I watch primarily American shows, and I'm in America.
Weird, isn't it? Anyway, there was one idea that really caught my attention as I was watching this one episode, and I just had this thought, like... the difference between a doctor's MO and a general's MO. Modus operandi, in case MO is not...
Yeah, like I was about to ask.
But anyway, I looked at this scene where these people are... the generals who are in charge of the organization, this governmental organization, are trying to make decisions based on the lives of many people. But they're not afraid to sacrifice one for the benefit of many. And, they think that they're responsible... They think they're responsible for all lives. As many lives as they can save, they're responsible for. Whereas, a doctor is devoted solely to keeping his patients or her patients alive. Responsible for your life is the way I worded that. And so I'd love to explore that dichotomy in a story somewhere, where the general and the doctor have some understanding, and the doctor gets the patients that the general tries to save but can't. I think that'd be a really interesting relationship to look at.
That would be interesting. And although I think it'd be funny, like in terms of like the doctor's responsible for just their patient, that'd be kind of funny if like the doctor's performing surgery on someone and it's like pretty serious but nothing like too extreme. But then someone comes in like, doctor, you have to take care of this guy. If you don't have surgery on him right now, he'll die. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm kind of busy right now.
But there are other doctors. No, anyway.
No, everyone else is dead. What happened to them?
All right.
I'm not good at improv. I'm sorry.
That's okay. There are 6 golden rules of improv that we should talk about at some point in maybe a future.
One of them is that you can't say no. I remember that from my improv lessons.
Yes. But anyways, the other show that I want to rip off something of is an interesting topic. A new character was introduced in this show called Kyoryuger. It's a Sentai about dinosaurs, and they were trying to train the current team, and it was taking your fear and using that to strengthen you.
So if this one dinosaur is afraid of... No, I'm assuming it's not about... I mean, are the dinosaurs characters? Or are they like... Do they turn into dinosaurs like Power Rangers? Or
more or less, it is people utilizing power from dinosaur spirits and becoming
dinosaur
fighters.
Spirits? Ooh.
You'd have to watch it to understand. I don't want to go into...
No, I'm intrigued. Like,
Well, and I tell you this, there are 3 different Sentai shows that might be up your alley, Mr. Dinosaur Novelist. Anyways...
I don't know if you guys realize this, but I kind of like dinosaurs. They're okay.
They're okay. You wrote a book about them. They're just okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're not the best.
Anyway, the way that...
I spun a roulette wheel, it landed on dinosaurs. It was this close! But just barely missed unicorns. I really wish I had gotten on there.
Well, anyway. I imagine you'd be searching for unicorns a lot longer.
Unicorn.
Anyways, the new character describes it this way. You must be weak to become strong.
Yes.
There has to be
it's sort of like how there's no bravery without fear. Or there's no courage without fear, I guess.
Ironic, because you said bravery, because bravery is the theme of the show. Their bravery allows them to become these warriors, which that's an interesting. But it's some area that catalyzes you to gain strength.
Right.
So, for example, they were all, the 5 main characters at the time were put under this test, and they were, supposed to do a very simple task, but they were challenged along the way by different effects of some of their own arsenal. And it gets to a point that they had to make the decision for themselves that even if my best is not working, I have no choice but to try.
Right.
And so they finally succeeded in their task, and they found out that their leader character, whose name is Daigo, he managed to get through this challenge very quickly because he realized very quickly that he just had to give it his best effort regardless of whether it worked or not. And his fearlessness was looked at by the new character and described as weak, which was weird because, you wouldn't think fearlessness is a bad thing. But through this, they explored this idea that he was afraid of something. He wasn't just, unafraid of anything, which was the original portrayal, but that he was afraid of losing his comrades. And through that fear, wanting to stay with them strengthened him. It catalyzed him to become stronger, which was exactly the point. And I just loved how they treat friendship in that model as something that both makes you weak, yet makes you strong. You see a lot of shows in that respect that portray it as one or the other. Oh, it's either a huge hindrance, and so people use that justification to work alone, or it's a great strength, and that's why I have these friends. But not
the Lego Batman movie is all about that.
But not
and other
both.
Examples I can't think of right now.
But not both, and so it was really fascinating to me.
That sounds really fascinating.
That's
I like that, and I like the whole thing about fearlessness. I think the difference between bravery and stupidity is fear. Yep. If you're afraid but you go charging in regardless, that's bravery. If you're not afraid but you go charging in, but it's a really powerful thing,
it's reckless.
It's reckless, yeah.
Anyway, so, I'm done. So you got things you want to rip off this time?
Absolutely. Not as big as that, I guess, or as meaningful as that, but just more stuff that I've enjoyed and just individual things that I like about it. So, on my PS4 that I love so much, and I love bragging in your face about it, look at this thing. It's so shiny. It's so black. I don't know where I was going with that.
And it's funny because you're holding a black can, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to edit all this out. You know what? I'm not. It's more real that way. This is the real us. We're not censoring us.
Hardly.
I'm not afraid.
Except that one time you censored an F-bomb in the intro.
Ugh. Okay, no more.
What the bleep is my hair?
Any F-bombs I make now are gonna be ready to go. Not ready to go. They're gonna be... I'm censoring myself just by not knowing what I'm saying. I'm playing Injustice 2! Okay.
Alright,
it's the sequel to Injustice Gods Among Us, which it's a fighting game series by the guys who did Mortal Kombat, based on the DC universe, right? And
sure.
It's based off all the DC characters. The plot is kind of It's an alternate universe where Superman goes bad because in the first game, the Joker put this toxin in him that made them think that this guy he was beating up was Doomsday, but turned out to not only to be Lois, who was pregnant with their son, and since he didn't pull any punches because he thought it was Doomsday, he killed both of them, and he went nuts and killed the Joker, but the Joker had a bomb and it ended up blowing up Metropolis.
Gee, I wonder why he went ballistic.
Right, well, he went nuts, and he started becoming like this sort of regime sort of thing, and like where he was like, he realized that truth, justice, the American way wasn't the way to go anymore. Like, I couldn't get anything done when the world was just so corrupt. So he had to he went to the line like, I'm going to save people by stopping crimes before they're committed, i.e. being a dictator and ruling by fear.
Road to hell paved with good intentions. Also, the way you just described it is a pretty good summary of Civil War II, the comic event that just...
Well, there you go. I wonder if it came out... Didn't that come out last year or the year before?
Yeah.
Didn't it come out the same year as the movie? Okay.
Yeah, they kind of... Well, it had already been like 10 years since the original comic event, but partly because of the movie, they came up with a new conflict in that. The idea of, do we use a way to see the future to apprehend criminals before they become criminals, or do we let them do it knowing it's going to happen and just let it be?
Right.
Anyway, this is not a place to rehash that plot because it's...
it's pretty cool though. Anyways, so at the end of that game, they stop him and they bring him put him in a prison that's like basically it's a red sunlight prison. Like they just constantly have a red sunlight energy just on him, so he's like basically immortal. Immortal, not immortal. I recognize. If I say that,
quite get the extra strength that he does from the yellow
star
that we have.
Because that's one of his Superman's things, which means, but with a blue star, he's ultra powerful. But anyway,
well,
so in this game, the story continues with that, and then unfortunately though, Brainiac comes in, and there's only one guy strong enough to beat Brainiac, and it's the guy currently sitting in that red sunlight cell, and. A lot of it's just more like, this is how we justify these characters fighting each other. There's a lot of like, oh, Poison Ivy used her pheromones on this person, so now they're gonna fight this guy. Oh wait, this guy's been mind controlled. Well, this guy's bad, but then you beat him up and he joins your side or whatever. But it's kind of, but the plot is actually really well done. The dialogue is really well done. The character interactions are great. Like that's the thing I'm gonna rip off. Like how these characters just bounce off each other. Like not even like in just the story, just more like the way their personalities mesh when just. Because at the beginning of every match, regardless of what type of mode it is, even if it's just multiplayer, they show the two characters talking to each other before the match begins, right? And some of them are great. Like one of them is one of the best ones is Green Arrow and Superman. Superman's like goes up to a Green Arrow before they fight and says, "You know what? This really isn't fair." Right?
Nah.
Green Arrow's just a guy, and Superman's super powerful. But then Green Arrow's like, "Yeah, I suppose I'll be a good sport and let you fight anyways." And then Superman's like. Huh, that actually was kind of funny. Fights.
That's pretty well-tread ground with... I mean, even Batman, who's a self-made hero, is kind of the same there.
Green Arrow and Batman are very, very, very similar. I mean, that they're both billionaires with no powers who fight and use tricks, but other than that, they're entirely different, I guess.
Well, the ideals of Green Arrow are far more political than Batman. Mm-hmm. Batman acts as a detective, and he's incredibly smart, and obviously he has resources and uses them well, but Green Arrow... is smart in a different way. He has a lot of experience, and he's very opinionated. And so he tries to use his powers for what he thinks is right. And I say powers like trick arrows and stuff. And, fight for what he believes is justice.
Right.
So there are very important, but very few differences between them.
Right. But there's also some more serious ones I can't really remember right now. The funniest one, actually, though, it's when Green Arrow and Black Canary have to fight, and they're husband and wife, right?
Well, more or less.
So when they fight, their pre-fight banter isn't like tough topics. We're like, surely there's a better way for us to decide who gets to babysit the kid next weekend, right? I thought that was pretty great. Anyways, it's a good game. It's very nice. There's a lot of great super moves. The best one's like how you build up enough of a meter enough, and then
down B to use.
And then you do this overpowered cinematic move that just does so much damage. The best one is the flashes. So what he does, he spins you about really, really fast, then runs you through a time portal. He smashes you into the nose of the Sphinx as it's being constructed. Then he runs the other way, smashes you into a T-Rex as it's eating a carcass, then runs back. And then finally smashes you into yourself as you were being spun by the Flash earlier. And then the Flash carries that self back in time, and then the fight continues with you.
Good lord.
It's great.
That sounds like an extravaganza. Must have been fun.
Oh no, they're all like that. Like,
must have been fun to make that one.
yeah, it's great. But like, there's ways I can make these characters who you think wouldn't have such brutal super moves to be so brutal. Like Catwoman's is basically she gets your whip, she wraps you up with your whip, and then like gets her motorbike out, drags you behind her with her motorbike, and then flings you ahead, crushes the motorbike on top of you as she jumps off. This is Catwoman.
That sounds brutal.
Yeah. Anyways, enough about Injustice 2. I'm just basically going to rip off the character interactions and the great dialogue, and I just love that kind of stuff. I think it'd be cool to have.
Well, you have to do them with your own characters, of course, but
right, and it's not just for like fighting games.
Characters. Yeah.
It kind of goes on the idea that I really like banter, and this is kind of full of that. I think eventually in my career, I don't want to write just books. I would love to write other things, even if it's not something I create. Like I'd like to write something like fighting game dialogue sounds great. Maybe someday.
Well, as a dovetail then to what we at the Writ have writ.
Well, wait, hold on. I've also ripped off.
I'm sorry. Fine. Well, you said writing something, so I was like, oh, well, that's a great.
So basically, anything I ever mentioned in this entire podcast reminds you of the next segment because we always talk about writing something.
I don't know about all of it, but I can use it for a segue.
We have no filler on this show, David. No filler whatsoever. Everything is concise. Yes, but
we also have a very, very long topic, and we haven't even moved halfway towards it.
All right, yeah, okay, you know what? You're right. Forget the next thing. It's just basically, I need to balance lighthearted comedy with serious character drama and sheer creativity. It's Guardians Volume 2. It's all right for me not really talk about it because you haven't seen it and I don't want to spoil it for you. So,
I appreciate no spoilers. Sorry, I did kind of gloss over that though. You're right. Anyway,
that's fine. All right, so what have you at the Writ have writ? What
we at the Writ have writ. You actually said it right, but the grammar now becomes wrong because you said one.
Because I said what have you at the writ? There we go. What?
Say that 20 times fast. Anyway, I haven't done too much. It's been kind of tough lately for me to make time for writing because I come home at the end of the day and I'm just kind of like, And you've probably been there before.
Understand that.
But
oh no, like after a long day at work, at where I work.
Yeah, and you come back home and you're just like, what do I want to do?
Relax.
Video games, TV shows, not writing.
Netflix.
However, I mentioned last month about the new idea for a fic I had, and I called it Pulsar. I do have both a couple episodes in the works there. It's just tweaking things. I actually do want to make a mention that normally I won't do this, but I like writing chronologically, so start at the beginning, work towards the end. But it has gotten to the point where I just have stagnated so much on the first episode that I said, well, skip it. Why don't I just, actually do something, make some progress? Mm-hmm. So there's a point for that favor. And so I actually have started the second episode as well. Both of them are in process, and eventually I'll get done. Eventually, I don't know when that is, so don't.
There's really nothing wrong with writing out of order. It's just however you prefer to do it.
Well, and
I prefer to write in order myself, but
and the other part of it is that you have to make sure that you're consistent. Like, it's so easy for me to start at the beginning because that way I establish the characters and I can reference things later. Whereas if I jump to a different place, who knows how I get there? Who knows if I'll even be able to keep it once I get there? However, the difference in this particular model is that I didn't jump very far and I know exactly where I want the first episode to end. And from there, where I can continue it. I just haven't gotten to that ending in the first episode yet.
That's understandable. What I like to do for those kind of things, I just write. I write a scene. If I want to see it ahead of time because I'm really excited about it, I want to get some ideas down. I write it, but I don't intend it to be the final version unless it manages to fit once I get there. But otherwise, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just improve upon it once I actually get to this scene. So.
Well, more or less, but as we've recommended before, just keep writing somewhere. It doesn't have to be in order if you don't want it to be, which there's the benefit to that approach.
For more information, listen to episode 3 of the Writ.
Are we making another companion episode of that? Anyway.
Yep, every episode this far is a companion episode of that.
Well, I mean, if we're all talking about writing. But anyway, I'll go ahead and let you go.
Alright, well, I'll talk about what I at the Writ have writ. That works. Okay, I had to think about it for a second. Okay. So, hey David, I don't know if I said anything. Maybe, I don't think I mentioned it. I think I forgot. But Megazoic is published! Oh my god! I'm so happy. That's what I mean, I'm not really happy. I guess I'm overwhelmed. I don't know how to feel. It actually doesn't feel that different, honest. It's more like I'm no longer just a writer anymore. I'm an author. So that means we're not just better than you. Now I am better than you, David.
Well, considering how much practice you've had, that was kind of a foregone conclusion. But
right, but now like it's official, set in stone. Until you get anything you've done published, I am better than you now. I am A tier, you are B tier, and our listeners are Z tier. That's not true. We love you, listeners.
Yes, we love having you. But does that mean that I'm not qualified to host the podcast anymore? Because we can't definitively say that we are better than you.
Yes, exactly. I've already phoned in Stephen King to replace you. So
well, at least it's a good offer. Anyway,
I can let him know that it's thanks for the offer to replace Matt David, but I've got a favor to keep you going.
A favor?
I owe you.
You owe me?
I don't really,
okay, whatever.
I don't really owe you anything, honestly.
I was about to say.
Megazoic is published, okay? That's what I've writ. You can buy it on Amazon. Just search Megazoic. There's print and Kindle versions. There's advantage to both. Print, it's like an actual book you can hold, which a lot of people do prefer. It comes with a lot of cool pictures on each chapter, drawn by my artist and fellow college friend Natasha Kreck. I think it's how you pronounce her last name. I've known her for a long time. I'm not sure if it's Kreck or Kretsch. I'm going to show her this part of the podcast. She's going to tell me, and I'll let you guys all know next month. So, and it's okay for me to say her name because she's mentioned in the book.
So professional here. Anyway.
All right, but no, so that's cool. She did all of them. It's great. It really makes the whole story come more to life. Makes people more visualize it who may not see it as well as I do in my head. But the advantage of the Kindle version is that, one, it's cheaper.
Sure.
Two, you can take it on the go without worrying about like the space of all your books. And nice thing about Kindle, you know how
that binding is.
Right, it's pretty big. I didn't expect it to be that big. I'm like, whoa, this is enormous. But then I was like,
didn't it come out to be close to like 500 pages in that format?
Yeah, it was 450. I think.
Oh my gosh! For a first book, that's pretty intense. But it was self-published.
I checked to make sure. First-time authors, they don't like it to be more than 100,000 words, and this was 89,000, so it could have been longer.
Oh, I know, I could have.
Anyways, so the Kindle version, you know how in Kindle you can press a button, and if you don't know a word and it searches for you on like the dictionary or Wikipedia or whatever, you can do the same thing with dinosaurs. It goes to Wikipedia most of the time, obviously. But,
sure.
Like, for example, like in the first chapter, when it says like the sign raptor groaned or whatever, because we mentioned the main character, Cortan, he's a sign raptor. It's like, what the hell's a sign raptor? Boop. Sign raptor is a genus of theropod dinosaur from the late Jurassic period that was found in China. Blah, blah. They're about 20 feet long and blah, blah. And like, oh, I get it now.
Except you wouldn't have had that aha moment because you already knew. Otherwise, you wouldn't use a sign raptor, right?
No, I'm role-playing as the reader.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Mm-hmm, no problem. I can't believe I needed that, you idiot. What would I do? What would this podcast be without us insulting each other? Although I say that like you have ever insulted me. It's more just me relentlessly bashing you and you just take it.
I keep you around for a reason.
Oh God. That makes me really scared. You're preparing for a big insult later.
Let's see. How many different podcast episodes have you recorded where you've threatened to send like an ICBM at me or a nuke?
I was just about to do that earlier with the whole Stephen King thing. I decided against it. Alright, anyways. Yeah, just basically I've been doing that. I've also written more on the sequel, and I've written on the collaborative story, the prequel for that, based on my character, which... Segue, finally. These intros are getting longer and longer for us.
Gee, I wonder whose fault that is. Anyhow.
So, we're talking about co-authoring today, aren't we, David?
Yes. Specifically this idea that I've been cooking up in the back of my head called the co-author contract. So, here's what we're going to do, is that we're going to run through just some basic terms, the kind of like clauses you see in a contract that I came up with. I don't want to say they're complete because there are probably things that I missed, but I did a pretty thorough job of coming up with these things, so there's a lot considered here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just review these basic, well, I guess I could call them clauses, and then we'll say a little bit about them, and then we'll close this section by giving a sample based on the collaborative that Donald just mentioned that we're both writing, as well as a couple other people. So first, we're going to explain the terms of this co-author contract thing, something that everybody should have a say on. All of the creators. It might be 2, it might be 4, however many. But the first term...
It might be 12.
I really hope not, because that's a pain. But
how many writers wrote the Bible? That's the biggest collaborative I can think of.
Well, they all wrote separate parts. But that's something
that's
else we could talk about later. However, the first term is, and this is pretty basic, who's responsible for writing?
Right. I guess, yeah, it depends on, like... If it's just two people, I think it's pretty clear. Like, if it's chapter by chapter, it's just like... Especially, like, if it's, like... I know a few comedy books, like, comedians have wrote, where, like, this person writes a setup chapter with these two characters, and the next person comes in and they write another chapter, but they don't tell each other their plans, and the story just keeps getting more and more and more ridiculous. I don't know. I mean, what did you mean more by, like, who's responsible for writing? Do you mean, like, which parts, or, like...
Well, how do you decide who has what part? How do you... So, like... Okay, I'll put it this way.
Oh.
In our experience, we've done the spoof on one of your older versions of Megazoic, right?
Right.
And
we just basically winged it, usually. Right, sometimes you write full sections, but a lot of times...
For comedy stuff, that's a lot easier. However, we're not talking about that. I just wanted to bring that up because 98% of the time, he was at the keyboard, and I just kind of hovered over his shoulder while doing it. So what I mean by this is... That gives you very little credit, though. You often contributed jokes, and I just wrote them down, so... Right, but the literal responsibility was basically Donald's.
Right. Yeah, we were always in the same room when we did it.
Right.
So
that was the point, because that way we could bounce off each other. But the thing is, he was responsible for writing it. I might have helped with idea generation. I might have, said a couple of things.
Yeah, you were very much there. I didn't write it with just we bounced off each other and got some great comedy material out of it. So don't undersell yourself. But you're right. I was the one typing it down, and
right.
I mean, which makes sense. It was my story we were spoofing.
So in that version of a contract, you would have been the one responsible for writing. I think you mentioned something, too, about doing it in a certain style. So, like, if one person's doing script format, perhaps, and then the other guy's doing prose, is that work?
Well, I'm more like that, like, dialogue and prose. Like, just when someone says something, if someone isn't really good with making believable dialogue, they just write all the things the characters say. Maybe they do it in a script format, and then the other guy who does prose puts that into the prose format.
Wait, are you suggesting that one guy does the banter and the other guy does the stage direction type thing? Because that's what it sounded like. That. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, but it's for a prose story. So yes.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, I mean, and in the format you have to decide as well. I think that's a different term. I don't know if we actually had that one. Anyway.
Well, I think it's in terms of who writes what. I think it's definitely the easiest ways to have different characters, and each collaborator, each author has like their point of view character that they always focus on. So. That's definitely the easiest way, I think.
And that's the way we're doing with our collaborative. We'll talk more about that, obviously, with the sample one. But I just want to ask this rhetorical question. If it isn't all, is it really co-authoring?
Right.
If it isn't everybody getting some chance to write, then it really isn't much of a co-author as much as it is like, oh, you're helping with ideas, but this guy's the main person.
Well, then do you think we didn't co-author that spoof?
Well, I'm saying that in a different circumstance. I agree with you. Like, I'm not trying to sell myself short. I think it was, beneficial for both of us that I was involved in the process. We'll talk more about the creative process. Obviously, I did write some. I said 98% of the time, but most of the time...
Right, I guess... Okay, fine. But in technical terms, you co-authored. Okay.
Right. Well, I mean, if you want to be technical about it. But, like, I think that everybody should have a fair chance. And I was offered the chance, I just didn't take it.
It's probably easier in movies because sometimes, like a lot of movies have a lot of different screenwriters, and sometimes it's just one of the screenwriters might just do a couple of scenes, or a couple of bits of dialogue that was just better for them. They were the one they decide on. Like, sometimes it's really, really only a little bit. Like, Joss Whedon, he's one of our favorite guys. Well, I mean not our favorite guys, but we just know him pretty well. He wrote The Avengers, and he wrote Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He wrote Serenity and such. And Firefly. Well, the Firefly was the series, Serenity was the movie. He's actually one of the writers on Atlantis: The Lost Empire, the Disney movie. But he only wrote a couple of bits of dialogue. He's not like in the main part of the credits. He's just like additional writers. So, like, one of the lines of dialogue that I know he wrote, and it makes sense because this is so Joss Whedon, based on what I've seen of him, is that scene when there's that pillar, and Miles like, look at the size of this. It's got to be half a mile high at least. Must have taken thousands of years to make this. And that explosive guy knocks it down. It's like, hey, look, I made a bridge. It'll take them, 10 seconds? 11, tops. Like, that is so Joss Whedon. It makes sense. It makes sense that he wrote that. Right. So, just contributing to each other's strengths, I guess, is what I'm going with that point.
Sure. You want to complement your skills the best you can. And hopefully the other people are strong in areas where you're not as strong, if that's your goal. But we'll move on to the second clause, the second term, and that is the process of idea generation. For everybody, this is going to be different. Obviously, some people are going to say, well, we need to vote on everything. If there's a story direction, everybody should have a chance to have a say. However, some people, I'll talk about changing metaphors just a little bit. In one of my barbershop quartets, we all had veto power on songs. If one person said we didn't want to do it, then we would try not to do it.
I mean, that's more like... I mean, that makes sense, because that's not just bouncing off each other. That is harmony. Right. So it makes sense. If there's one weak link, then it all falls apart. So I guess that...
Right, so, with ideas, too, you want to have everybody try and get behind it. It might not be your idea, but what is the process for plotting your story collectively? What is the process of coming up with ideas? Do you need to conference with everyone?
Yeah, I think what we did with our collaborative, we had, certainly, our villains. I think I came up with the idea of the villains, the idea of Nethermancers. Yeah, by the way, just as a heads up, I just realized our listeners don't know what a story is. And our idea, the villains are Nethermancers. It's like it's like they're people who control the Netherworld.
It came from
Necromancy. But the name came from Necromancy, but they're really just they can control the Netherworld, which is like the space between spaces, the space between the universes. There's multiple universes. So,
sure.
Anyways, but I came up with that idea, and that name I think that sounds like something dumb that I do, but and you guys just all like, hey, that was a cool idea, so we kept it.
Right, and sometimes it's really simple. You don't need to have a full sit down and I'm bringing this point, you're bringing that point, and let's hash it out, kind of a thing. But for every group, the process will be different. Obviously, smaller groups have it easier in that respect. But I think that here's an example. I am working on a co-authored Power Rangers fanfic with a friend of mine, and he just introduced an idea that he didn't bother asking me about, which, as far as I can tell, it looks like a great idea. Full disclaimer, sorry, buddy, I haven't completely read that episode yet, if you're listening to this. But anyway, I saw this thing, and I'm like,
why aren't you responding to any of my text messages? No.
But I'm like, wait, did he just do that? He didn't even talk to me about this at all.
It wasn't like a big idea?
Well,
something that would change the course of the whole plot? I don't know.
Well, not necessarily. Again, it's hard to say because I haven't read the full episode. But I will say this: that it echoed an idea that I had earlier, and that was one that I came up with. And so I'm just like, well, that's really interesting. In that situation where the brand new idea wasn't your own, are they allowed to run with that, or do they have to, veto or not veto? Do they have to vet everything by you first? Oh, I'm going to add this. Is that okay?
I think there should be a mix of both. It depends on how big the idea is, really.
Well, I mean, improv comedy, anything goes. Right. You're just throwing spaghetti at the wall.
It's just been the story. If you're trying to tell a serious story, then yeah, it should be approved. But if it's like a silly comedy, coming out of the blue is probably kind of the fun of it. If it changes the story completely, it's just kind of fun to see what the other guy has to do with that. That. Right. So... Anyways.
Well, and it depends on if you have structure that you want to follow or not. I think. Do you need the other's permission to implement a brand new idea? I would say it's better if you at least say, "Hey, I'm going to do something," but I don't know if you really need permission to introduce a new concept.
Well, so this isn't really a collab. I guess it is a collaborative, but there's one guy in charge of it all. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is the biggest collaborative in movies right now. Sure. Now, Kevin Feige is the one steering the whole ship. But the idea I was going to say here, there's a plot twist in Iron Man 3 that I'm not going to say a lot of people just because I guess a lot of people, but I'm not going to say most. Half of the people who watched Iron Man 3 hated the twist that the Mandarin was just an actor. However, to the full credit of Shane Black, the director and writer, he came up with the idea, but he asked Kevin Feige first.
Yep.
So... Like, that was not Kevin Feige's plan, but he's like, yeah, you know what, that'd be funny. I disagree, but whatever.
Well, and you're entitled to your own opinion, but obviously, in that situation, he is the head honcho, the guy who oversees it all.
But Shane Black didn't just say, oh, I'm going to do this, wouldn't it be great? He had to get permission from Kevin Feige first, the producer of it all, by the way, in case, I didn't make that clear to people who might not know.
Right, and so his model is a lot different, because you have different creators coming in and creating individual entries into this one fabric, but he oversees the fabric, not the stories themselves.
So I guess it's kind of different from a collaborative. I mean, I guess they're all collaborating. I don't know. Like, I guess it's more of a collaborative in the sense that, like, certain directors have to deal with the choices of certain other directors. Like,
well, here's the question: would you call Kevin Feige a collaborator in an individual movie, or is he the producer of the entire?
He's the producer of the entire thing. But what I was going to say with the directors, though, was like Thor, for instance, was directed by Kenneth Branagh. Tom Hiddleston originally auditioned for Thor, but then Kenneth Branagh said, "You know what? You'd be a great Loki," and then so he came in as Loki. This was Kenneth Branagh's decision, or however you pronounce his last name. I have no idea how to pronounce his last name. It was his idea to cast Tom Hiddleston as Loki, and because of that decision, ended up changing the plans of a lot of different other people just because of how good Tom Hiddleston is the role. Like Joss Whedon in the Avengers, whatever the guy's name who did Thor: The Dark World. What's that guy's name?
I can't
Alan
remember,
Taylor.
but anyway.
But yeah, so that's kind of a collaborative, and that certain people have to stick with the decisions of certain other people. Like, another thing I didn't like in Iron Man 3 was that how easily he got rid of the palladium in his heart, or like not the shrapnel in his heart. By like he just did surgery and it just went away, even though it was a plot point that was really serious in other ones. However, the writers of Captain America: Civil War took advantage of that. Spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
By having Captain America go for his arc reactor in order to dismantle him, knowing it wouldn't kill him like it would before. It just powered his armor at that point.
Sure.
So, I don't know. It's just like, I'm assuming that, I think Shane Black came with the idea of the whole, ending it there. Especially because they weren't sure there could be no more appearances with Robert Downey Jr., so they had... but then they just built off of each other's ideas.
You want his story to end, and so they tried ending it, and then the other guys came along and ended up using it, and so they had to craft something from that place.
Well, the point is they built off of each other's individual ideas.
Sure.
Each creator... So, I mean, this is without Kevin Feige, is what I'm saying.
And furthermore, it's not really planned ahead of time. They aren't talking about this years in advance. They're reacting to each other. The third big collaborative story that I'm working on with yet a different author is an add-on story.
Oh, I don't think I've heard of this.
Well, I might have mentioned it, but the basic
I probably forgot because I'm a terrible friend.
The basic premise is that, of an add-on story in general, what you're left with, you work from there. Sometimes we talk about it and say, well, it'd be nice if we could work towards this, but I don't tell you what you need to write. Similarly, it's the same for me. You don't tell me.
See, that kind of a thing, that seems like it works better in comedies, but thinking about it, I can see that working really well in a horror story. Like, how do you get the characters out of this one?
Possibly. Anyway, speaking of getting out, we're going to move on to our third term, which I call the escape valve. I have a feeling that... you should probably say your bit first, because I have a feeling that the audience is going to think along your lines, not mine.
Well, I misinterpreted what you meant.
Right, so tell them what you were talking about beforehand, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so in Spider-Man: Homecoming, which is the movie coming out this summer, it's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's distributed by Sony. As far as I know, it's still as much of a Marvel Studios film as any of the others. The only difference is that Sony's distributing this one rather than Disney, and Sony gets the money from it, not Disney. But I think I heard there's a teeny tiny bit of creative control from Sony. But before it was theorized, before we knew for sure how much creative control Sony had, we weren't sure, but we heard that Robert Downey Jr. was going to be in it as Iron Man, and some people joked, wouldn't it be funny if they killed off Iron Man in Spider-Man: Homecoming? Because then Marvel Studios would be like, oh shit, I'm not going to censor that. I'm going to keep it real.
All right.
Or maybe I will censor it. We'll see.
I don't know.
I like to be inconsistent.
Of course.
It makes me more of a hypocrite, and I like hypocrisy.
So when you say escape valve, then you think of somebody else reneging on the terms of the contract, so to speak.
Right, which you kind of get more on later, so that the next point, but we'll get to that.
Okay, so
I didn't realize that you meant like if one of our collaborators decides like, hey, I don't want to do this. Like, okay, we need a backup plan.
Yep, exactly, and that is what I call the escape valve. In the escape valve for authors, so you got a couple options. Obviously, you could have somebody take over the character. I mean, in our collaborative, each author is responsible for the focus on his character, and so theoretically, I'm always writing mine, Donald's always writing his, etc., etc. So if this collaborator theoretically leaves, do we take over the characters? Does another writer get that character to write, or do you just write him out?
It depends on how big the character is and how integral in the role it is. Because like in our story, we have 4 characters who have been very purposefully put together for specific reasons. So it'd be really weird for if one of our authors left, one of the point of view characters is like, all right, I'm out. See you guys. I just realized. I
gotta go do this thing.
I left the oven on.
Right, and so for us, it's a pretty easy decision. But sometimes, I guess it depends. As Donald said, it does depend on the importance of the character. But you have to have some escape valve in case something like that happens, because you never know.
Right.
You don't wish something bad to happen to you, any of your collaborators, but sometimes it might. You never know. Like, what if somebody loses a family member and it happens to be their turn, and there's no way they can make in any timely progress, but you want to keep the story going. We'll talk about that a little bit more too. But anyway, that's what I mean about escape valve. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next term now.
God modding.
How ironic that you said that.
Yeah, I thought that it's irony for you.
Yeah, of course.
I'm the god now. There can only be one, shoving you off the mountain.
All right.
Oh wow, that's another death threat. I think some conscious part of me just wants to kill you, and I don't get why.
Anyways, control of other people's created characters. In case you're not familiar with the term god modding, but how much is allowed, how much is not allowed. I think it's going to be different for every author, which is why it's a term in the contract here.
Right. Well, the example I have here, it's not really. This is before the DCEU, the alternative to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the other big collaborative thing right now. It was before it really had a thing to steer the ship, so it makes sense that this happened. But, okay, and this is Batman v Superman spoilers, even though this happens early on in the movie.
Spoilers.
Zack Snyder introduces Jimmy Olsen, this classic Superman character, who's always been like fanboying over Superman at the Daily Planet. He introduces him early on in Batman v Superman, and he is quickly killed off. In fact,
because he wasn't he wasn't in Man of Steel, as I recall.
Right? No, he wasn't. Also, he was. There was a character named Jenny in Man of Steel.
Right.
Though. People were kind of
that was the analog, as I remember it.
Well, people were wondering if it was that was the Jimmy Olsen. They just gender flipped him. I don't know. But then they have actual Jimmy Olsen later. But of course, that could be the case because he kills him off in this one. And Zack Snyder said he did that because, like he said, he couldn't fit him in the story. But I'm like, what if someone else wanted to do a Superman movie and wanted to have him? Well, now they can't unless it's rebooted. But
yeah. Well, in comic book continuity, what it is, you never know.
I mean, this isn't comic book movie. We don't know what comic book movie continuity is yet.
That's true. Well, to some degree,
yeah.
Until we see a major player actually, leave Earth, they theoretically could come back. But anyway.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
nothing is ruled out in comics, but yeah.
Right. One of the things that I think about god modding, if you get other people's permission to and or review the ideas with the creator of that character, I think you should be able to use them.
Oh yeah.
It's not really.
If you get permission, there's no reason not to. Yeah.
It's not really fun if you have to stick in your own lane with just the characters you started, because then you can't open it up to all of the characters in the story. Right.
Well, it feels very restrictive as a writer. So,
but there has to be some line that you just you can't make them make a life-altering decision in your section. That's not your business. But you can use them, I think, especially if you do review the ideas. Like, I'm going to lead this. I'm going to point this guy in that direction. Is that okay? And then you can work with it from there, kind of a thing. And that it kind of escapes the letter of the law on god modding. As opposed to those people on RPGs who inevitably say, well, your character needs to be here now, and I'm making it so. Which is just
so stupid. I used my teleportation spell that I just thought about the guy. I teleported him there.
Right, that kind of annoying god modding, which is where the term came from, I believe.
That makes sense. Yeah, those classic posts where, we do forums and we get them together. Which we have some fond memories of, don't we, David?
I remember an RPG that we had fun one thrown down, but we still never really did anything with it. Anyway,
we made a whole forum for it, though.
That is true. Well, okay, we didn't make the forum for the RPG, but we definitely, that was like the thing we did there.
And it had a grand total of 50 posts or something,
which were like all basically all from that RPG. Anyway,
Anyways.
moving on to another term in the contract, and that is deadline. What if they miss a deadline?
Kill them!
Okay, well, first of all, I should probably establish, if knowing that you can't rush creative process, you have to be reasonable. You have to give everybody the same amount of time.
Say.
The same amount of time to be able to come up with things. And it should be, sizable enough that they don't feel pressured, unless that's the only way you're going to get it out of them. We'll talk about...
since I'm a published author now and a real professional, I can speak from a multitude of experience that the real world of writing, there are deadlines, they're very strict, and if you need more time to write it, well, too bad! This is the real world, bitch!
Yeah, I wonder if you're going to censor that one out. Anyway.
No!
Okay, but in this case, it kind of... It's a lesser form of the escape valve that we talked about earlier, I think. If you miss the deadline, what do you do? If they miss the deadline,
that's
on their
a pretty
portion,
harsh
what
punishment
do you do?
from the deadline. Just they're out of the story, but out of the story for good now because you kicked them out. Which I guess I say it's a harsh punishment, but I just said that they should be killed. So what do I know?
Well, in our instance, I think it might fall to me. I don't know, but is there an overall fill-in writer? Because you'd hate to hand the guy or girl. Sorry, I shouldn't be completely sexist.
We're using the gender-neutral guy.
You should hand the writer a story part, and you don't want the writer to hold on to it so long that all momentum stagnates completely, right?
2 years, for instance.
2 years, or 7, or 9 months, I think was what we're on right now. But anyway, the point being that...
Oh, does that have something to do with pregnancy, I wonder?
Well, that's speculation for another episode. Anyway, the point is that you have to be reasonable so everybody gets a chance to write, and hopefully the story keeps moving. Like that add-on story that I'm mentioning, we don't really have a set deadline, but we're currently in a lull because the other guy is busy with life right now, and so the momentum has kind of died on the story.
Right.
You don't want.
I think after a point we should have a fill-in writer, and I think I vote for you.
Well, thanks for the vote of confidence, but we'll talk about our story, the sample, later. Anyway, if there is a fill-in writer, they have to be expected to take it after a certain amount of time, and advance the story so that it keeps moving. Whether the other author really appreciates having to fill in or not, the point is that you want to try and keep everyone involved, and you can't if one person holds on to it, right? If they hold on to an interminably long time. So, is there some kind of process notifying them that their deadline is up? You don't just yank it from them. You don't pull the rug out from under their feet. You give them, hey, we've been waiting for you for 9 months. It's time that somebody does something, so we're going to go.
Right, yeah, I agree with giving them a warning before you just say, all right, you took too long.
Because it might inspire them to say, well, you know what, I've been meaning to get this done. I need to do it, so thanks for the gentle reminder, and I'll take care of it.
Yeah, right. I think that's the best way.
At which point you need to be reasonable and say, well, okay, but I need to have it by... kind of a thing.
Or I'll send out the attack squad.
Or he'll send out the firing squad that he's mentioned 7 episodes ago. Anyway,
you see that light flashing on your forehead? Yeah, if you don't get this going right now, there's going to be
I'm recording.
Guy.
But I'm recording. Anyway,
not you. I mean, in general. I meant your co-op.
With how many times you threatened me, it could be. Anyway, moving on to another term, is the length set or free within each portion?
I think it should be set, personally, within limits. Maybe not free, maybe free within limits is the best part. There's a set thing, but it's an open sort of thing. Have between 3 and 10 pages. Just something that's wide open, but just so it's not too ridiculous either way.
I'll say from my own experience, the Power Rangers co-author fic, we set a limit of how many pages per episode. Mind you, we both write it in different fonts, so sometimes that gets a little skewed, for one thing. For another, well, I mean, I end up compiling them all in the same, and it usually works out pretty same because we're using similar typeface size.
Well, and also you could just do word count, I guess.
Well,
I figure it out.
Well, if you want to do word count, if you want to do page count, here's what my experience is. Setting page limits can assist, however, sometimes it's a little difficult on either side. For people like us who are naturally long-winded, page limits
More
are
so
what
you
they
than
say.
me, yeah.
Limits. I mean, you should look at some of my nano things and how ridiculously long those chapters get. However, on the other end, sometimes it's too much and you can't fill all the pages, and so people have to stretch, and that doesn't always work. And so, it could be that the long-winded person gets a slightly longer page limit, and the person who doesn't write as much has to be more concise, but that plays to their strengths. It's different for everybody, but page lengths are a way to do it. Word count would be another way to do it. But I think there are benefits to having both as an option. Sometimes you have the set length. Sometimes it's just, whatever I feel like writing. And that's not just collaborative stories, by the way, in case you're curious.
Oh, no. I in terms of just my own stories, I have a sort of, in my head, limit on, I'm not limit, but just how long and how short each chapter can be. For Megazoic, in my writing, it's like, I don't really know how long the page count is for the actual formatting of the book, but in terms of when I write it, which is size 12 single-spaced Arial font on normal 8.5 by 11-inch paper, each chapter is anywhere between 4 and 15 pages long.
It'd be nice if
usually not 4.
It'd be nice if you're more consistent on page length, of course, but sometimes
there's only
it just
one chapter that's really that short, but basically, it's just so
I mean. Be reasonable. Try to play to all the creators' strengths, including your own, obviously, if you're a part of it. So another term then: who's responsible for editing?
Everyone, in my opinion.
Ditto. Moving on. Who's responsible for finalizing?
Everyone, in my opinion.
I honestly think it's one person that does the bulk of finalizing it. Like I said in the Power Rangers fic, that I end up putting all of it into the same font, same spacing.
Okay, well, I guess in that sense. I guess in that sense, that makes sense. But I think everyone should at least look at it first.
For consistency's sake. But I think that you're right. I think everyone should have a say. Does this look right? Okay, well, what if we try this font? Oh, that looks better. Okay, well, we'll do that.
But then once they're on agreement, the finalizer does the final finalization. And then it's finally finalized.
It's the final finalization.
I was about to say how I use that joke at work all the time. But then I remembered that we had a whole...
we had a whole thing on it. Wasn't that the Witties?
Yep.
Anyway... The next term, then, is the goal of all the creators. Not just one of the creators. It must be agreed upon. It is a collaboration, not a dictatorship, with a little help.
It's not modern-day America. Politics, man. Anyways.
Well, I mean, what is the goal? Either in the story itself or what you do with the story.
I think knowing where we're all gonna go, depending on if it's a dramatic story or such, that's definitely a good way to go. Also, knowing what other people, what your collaborators, what to expect from each other once they send the work in. You don't want someone to send their work in and then the other guy's like, oh, well, this actually isn't what I wanted you to do. So.
And that's where conferencing comes in handy. If we could ever get the 4 of us on a conference. Anyways.
But there's a whole continent and a bunch of states in between all of us, so...
I'll put it this way.
Except for one of them who's
problem.
about 2 miles away.
I'm not the problem, usually. I'd love to do it. We just never do. Anyway.
Lately, you are the problem. Beforehand, no. And to be fair, it's not your fault. You are in Japan.
Well, to throw it out there, it's not my fault. It's not one person's fault, but it is all our problem, right? Anyway, the goal of the authors... here's the issue. If you can't agree, then that makes it really challenging to give it an honest go of creation. If one person wants to publish it, but that person's the only one, and the others are just doing it for fun...
that's such a huge thing. I think everyone should be in agreement for that first.
Right. And that's... Well, in that particular instance is what I mean. I'm not necessarily referring to plot here. I'm referring to what do we want to do with this tale? What's the point of this tale? Are we going to publish it? Where? How much... time do we have? Those kind of goals should be agreed upon. If you can't agree, do not use the passive-aggressive means of editing other people's work to make it match your own idea.
Right.
That's like the worst kind of god modding you could do.
Yeah, I think, and on that note, I think editing other people's collaborations, if it's like especially if it's like a chapter by chapter thing, I think that should be very limited.
Well, depending on how you find edit. Like in my example, because I'm usually the guy who looks at all the different perspectives, as we call the segments that we do. I'm even the guy who usually looks at all the perspectives, and I usually do grammar, punctuation,
right. Well, that's fine, but
edits.
It's like in terms of like changing certain events. Then,
but I don't think I've ever changed an event. Yeah. I'm not the guy responsible for that, unless it's my own perspective, and I haven't not yet shared it with everyone. That's the only time I'm allowed to edit my own stuff, and I think that privilege goes to everybody as well. To be fair. Mm-hmm. Yes. Whether they take advantage of it or not. Like, early on in the collaborative, you had a perspective that was very short, and you decided to rewrite it and, give that to the rest of us. But that was you who rewrote it, so it's okay. Yes. It's not somebody else saying, you need to rewrite this, and this is how you should do it. Right. I think, I think if you do want to edit something on someone else's, you should ask them first. Well, and this is where conferencing comes in handy. If you want to have something that was set up pulled off in your own writing, like in some sort of Chekhov's gun, if you will, that gets fired in the third act of your work, but you want to set up in someone else's work, I think that's probably okay. But you probably should ask them first too. Like you have some set up on your own, but you could also keep setting it up in someone else's if you don't think they've done it enough. And with the add-on story, this is where the consistent checking on each other comes in handy. We kind of talk about, well, if we're going to do this, then maybe we should start setting it up, and it gets everybody in the same mindset of we need to start turning the story in this direction. So I don't have to edit it in for him. Right, I guess that's true, yeah. So. But, I mean, we do a lot more conferencing on that before really writing than any other collaborative I've worked on. Right. Which, with only 2 people, it's a lot easier. There is that caveat as well. Okay, we're moving on to the next term, and this one's probably the hardest to explain, but in regular contracts that there are things that you do, if you don't fulfill the contract, it's called a breach. A breach of contract, right? A breach of contract. So in this contract that you're making with your co-authors, what does a breach mean? You have to determine that. Yeah, I think it just means a stern talking to, or... I guess it depends on how much of a breach it is. Well, what is a breach? How do you mean what defines a breach? Yeah, what is the breach? How do you deal with the breach? That also should be agreed upon. I guess it's just basically you take any of these things that we've listed already before, and then the other guy's just like, screw it, I'm doing what I want. And they just keep adding stuff, and then keep changing other things, and going through his work. There's just being an anarchist, just constantly bombs everywhere, and by bombs I mean metaphorical bombs. Do you have an example of that, Matt? No, I'm just all babbling words at this point. Well, you have one written here, so I wasn't sure if you wanted to reference that or not. Oh, it means if Sony kills Iron Man in Spider-Man Homecoming. so if Sony did that, it wouldn't get past Kevin Feige, but maybe not. But if it did, I imagine Kevin Feige would be like. Or pull it out of this deal with Sony. God dang it. We've just lost this actor that people go in for. We know he's so valuable, we charge him $50 million for every appearance in the movie he's in. What does the Soul Stone do again? Does it revive people? Great! Reversed! Well, and that's a creative use of whatever you have. Mm-hmm. The Soul Stone hasn't been introduced yet. I think it's going to be introduced in Thor Ragnarok. Yay for comic book movies. Anyways, so we'll see if it can revive people. So here's some sample thoughts, and one is: do we kick out the person that didn't live up to their end of the bargain? Maybe it was they took 2 years to write a section of the story, and the rest of us said, "Nope, that's it. You're gone." Yeah. Which thankfully for me that didn't happen. Well, obviously this is something that I thought was a really good reason in my defense. But anyway, right. Well, I think it definitely depends on if it's a collaborative of just 2 people. If there's a breach, then, and again, how serious is the breach? That's a little bit of a problem. So you probably should work it out. Otherwise, it's not a collaborative story anymore. Is it really worth culling an extra person to give more creative control to the others? Right. Obviously, this exists as a compromise, right? we all bring our own ideas to this story. So you have to collaborate with them. You have to give up some of your ideas to allow them a chance to get some of theirs. Because you know what? Like it or not, some of their ideas will be better than some of the ones you have.
Right.
And
Makes
so
sense.
breaches can be all kinds of things, but how you deal with that is a really important thing that I think everybody should at least know of, if not necessarily agree on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you call an extra person, you get a little bit more of that creative control back. Especially if you write out his focus character or whatever, in an example we talked about earlier, that it allows for that. Can we please stop someone from god modding not just the story but the creators? That would be great.
If only, man.
But again,
Anyway,
how much of a breach is that, and is it really a collaboration at that point? All right, so this next term I have in parentheses because it does depend on the goal, but if it's a thing, who's responsible for publishing and publicizing?
I think it's definitely something that each of the collaborators have to discuss and agree upon. Who has the most experience, who has the most, who's the most interest, really, I guess, as well.
Well, consider that you want it to be someone who has the most relevant experience. Maybe recent too, but relevant experience, because PR is not something that you just do automatically. It takes time, it takes practice to get it right, how to promote yourself, your story, how to use your connections.
Should know. I'm a professional author now at this point.
Which means that if we ever decided to publish and or publicize, that we'd have to turn to you with the most relevant experience. I say have to, it's probably not a have to thing. But
you have to.
But it'd be one of those things. It'd be one of those things that we should let the guy who has the most experience do it, because otherwise we're all swimming without knowing how.
Unless I don't want to, in which case you guys can figure it out.
As for publishing it, well, obviously, if your goal is not to publish it, then that doesn't really matter, right?
Yep, just who cares? Yeah.
Well, and obviously, publicizing is much the same way. If you're
it also depends, if you want to post it anywhere.
Right.
Even if you don't publish it for people to buy, if you don't put it on, DeviantArt or, .fanfiction or, .net or whatever, or some other website that other people, host on, then...
Well, what is publishing? What is publishing to you, right? Is publishing, but we don't need to talk about that right now. The point is that you should have somebody who is set up to, well, I'm going to put all of my work so we can get this out. But that way you don't have too many cooks over the pot.
Right.
Kind of a thing.
Which is definitely the metaphor that fits all of this.
I guess so.
But,
all right. In the final term of the contract, sorry, it's taking a bit longer than I expected, but the final term of the contract that I came up with, and there could be some that I'm missing, are there any ancillary materials? And most importantly, is that fair game for everyone?
Yes! In my opinion.
Ditto.
Moving on.
I really don't have anything else to say about it, because,
define what do you mean by ancillary materials?
Ancillary materials could be world-building encyclopedias, which, admittedly, if you're doing world-building of other people's characters, you need to check with them.
Which, we should listen to that in episode 7 of our podcast, which is the one right before it. Wink.
Thanks for the connection. Ancillary materials could be fan fiction, could be video game design, could be turning it into movie rights.
It could be prequels, for certain characters like mine, yeah.
Anything outside of the main story, but is related to that character. That is ancillary.
I think, at that point, it's not really, as long as it's not part of the main collaborative, it's fair game for all creators. Do whatever you want.
In which case, you can god mod the other characters.
Mm-hmm.
But the main story, the one that you're...
whatever you're doing here is not canon or whatever.
Unless you're collaborating on that, and then, of course, that collaboration, it should follow a similar process. Maybe not as lengthy if it's just a once-off story, but, if it's simply you, then you have whatever right you want. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't have to be canon. In fact, it's probably better if it isn't, especially if you're going to, I'm going to take the bold risk of killing off this guy's character, because I think it's a good story move. Mm-hmm. But I think that it should be fair game for everybody, because some people want to make video games out of story ideas. Some people want to be, screenwriters. Some people want to make it into radio dramas or whatever. And I think that everybody should have a chance to do it.
Right.
If they want to use that.
I think so, absolutely, too.
Obviously, a lot of thinking should go into this contract. And there are things that we might have missed. But basically, I want to make sure that you know this. Collaboration is a compromise. At the end, hopefully it's a tale you're proud of, even if it doesn't match the exact idea you had.
Well, it's like that's the whole thing of a collaborative. It often doesn't. You write it because if you could just write it exactly how you wanted, you wouldn't want to make it a collaborative anyways. You do a collaborative because you want to work with someone else. Like sometimes it's just for the challenge of like, how do I
building off another person's ideas?
Yeah, fit with that person's ideas. Like if you go into a collaborative wanting to do exactly what you want to do, then don't write a collaborative. That's not what they're about, you know?
The only other purpose of a collaborative that I can think of is somebody who might have a really good idea but doesn't have the confidence or the experience to write it themselves.
Right. In which case you could also look into ghostwriting.
Well, that's a possibility as well. And ghostwriting itself is a different kind of collaboration that I just didn't think about, so thanks for the reminder.
Well, I mean, it's not really that clever. It's more like someone else writes the entire book, but then just the name is given to someone else. So
right. No, I know what ghostwriting means, but I'm saying
so
that...
it's not really collaborating. It's just yes. So
well,
we don't have to talk about what I'm saying.
Okay, fine, but it is and it isn't in some ways. Point being this: if you want to write a story with somebody, do it because you want to write a story with them and a good story, and hopefully their ideas make the original idea better. Whether you're piggybacking on somebody or whether you have the original brainchild, it should be the same.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. I think we've talked about the entire contract.
Now that we've talked about the contract, I think it would be helpful if you see like a sample. Obviously, there are any number of combinations of other ways to do this, but for our story, and I do want to point out
four-way collaborative, yes,
and I do want to point out the irony in the fact that even though it's a four-way collaborative, I was the one person who came up with the contract. But this is
we all agreed to it, so it still fits.
Well, we all
you're Kevin Feige.
Well, the two co-hosts, not the other two. But anyway, this is just one sample. If Donald has anything he wants to chime in on that or other options that occur to him, I'd love to have him say that because
right. But for now, in order to show our collaborative skills, I'm going to do each of the things in dramatic reading.
Well, are we good to begin then?
Yes, sounds good. Who is responsible for writing?
4 of us in turn. With a set rotation. We already decided the rotation ahead of time, so it's going to be this person's turn after author X is done, and then from author Y it will go to author Z.
We have a set of rotation. All right. What's the process of idea generation?
Everybody has equal veto power, but if you want it to be valid, it has to be done within a certain length of time. I will add that there's another option here. If you have a 3/4 vote...
Yeah, because there's 4 of us.
We'll keep an idea that only one person wants to can. One person wants to get rid of it, but if the other 3 want it, it should stay. So majority rules there.
All right. Escape valve.
If an author backs out, then author X, in this case, I think I've gotten the vote of confidence from 2 people, will write their characters' bits.
God modding. I don't know what I'm doing here, by the way. There's no pattern here, but whatever.
With permission, if you have decent lead time, you can utilize the side characters of other authors. And as we mentioned earlier, they're actual characters, just not major plot points with them.
Right. Deadline?
Hopefully within 3 months of receiving it. What if they miss? Then either
wait, hold on. Okay. What if they miss?
Sorry, that was supposed to be your thing.
Yeah, what if they miss?
Then either someone can skip a turn, or author X will finish the section.
Length set are free within the creator's portion.
Free, even if that means that some sections are laughably short.
Laughably? Yeah, because like some of them... So back when we started, I really didn't care. Now I only sort of don't care. No, I'm just kidding. But so my things were really short, but I've been working on getting them longer, so... Anyways... Who's responsible for editing?
Well, everybody, but final edits are up to author Y.
Who's responsible for finalizing?
Anything that author Y misses is up to author Z.
Joel the author! I'm basically drunk at this point.
Which is funny because you don't drink.
I'm drunk off of this delicious Arnold Palmer.
If you don't know what an Arnold Palmer is, look it up, listeners.
It's totally alcoholic. I am totally smashed.
Totally non-alcoholic. Anyways, the goal is to finish the tale. It doesn't have to be publication worthy. That was, by the way, as a brief break in the action here, this is one that we probably have not really agreed on between the four of us, so that was a bit of a guess.
It's a good thing our collaborative isn't finished yet, so...
Very true. Anyway.
Alright. Breach of contract is dealt with! How?
Possible punishments include a supermajority vote off the island, like we said, getting rid of the author, skipping a turn...
Feeding them to the sharks, because it's an island, not feeding them to the wolves.
Skipping a turn, so like we'll jump over this person because they missed on the last time, and so we're just going to pass them up by for this one. And it's important to us to keep the friendship, so don't say anything that's going to make them leave the thing for good.
Right. Yeah, you're out, and also we hate you, and also you are ugly, and also...
Well, our collaborative is between 4 friends. But, I mean, we were friends first, and so it's important, at least for me, who obviously came up with a
We shouldn't lose our friendship
contract.
due to some silly story, you know?
Right.
That we don't agree on.
It's not worth... If somebody doesn't want to write the story, then we can't hold it against them. You know, it's just a thing that's for some people and it isn't for others. So if that happens, I still want to be friends with the collaborators, but maybe it's time for them to step away from the story, as an example. Right. Anyway, moving on.
Makes sense. Who's responsible for publicizing? I can't sing, sorry.
Well, that isn't necessarily dramatic in what you were describing. But anyway, in the event that we don't publish broadly, other than perhaps the internet, like forums or friends, family, all of us should be responsible for publicizing it.
Right. Ancillary materials.
Fair game to all. Not expecting any adaptations, except maybe like separate stories within universe, or universes in our case.
The multiverse.
Fan fiction by individual authors, for example, like Donald mentioned earlier, is encouraged without shoehorning it into our main narrative.
Right. Well, that sounds like a hell of a contract, in my opinion.
Well, I'm glad you think so, but we need to have all 4 of us approve it.
Well, mine is signatures down here. Yours is down there. Yours are agreeable. I think we need to make it more official. Here, I'm going to slit my wrist. Here, hold on.
No. Don't need to sign in blood.
Okay. All right.
Well,
I think it's a show for this month. We did some good collaborative work here, you and I.
Well,
this whole podcast is a collaborative effort.
I was about to say it's pretty expected at this point. We've been working together for so long. So, anyways, let's move.
I remember
past,
we were just little youngins. All right, yeah.
Let's
okay.
get
How can
past
people get a hold of us?
Co-author stuff and move on to closing the episode, please.
Right. So people can get a hold of us by emailing me at mattd@matthewdonaldcreator.com.
Or emailing me at the same.
Yeah, it's tradition for me to spell it out, but I decided, you know what, you guys are smart.
Just
you guys
remember,
know how to spell. You're writers.
Just
you
remember that Matthew has 2 T's. That would be helpful.
Right,
as well as Matt.
MATTD at MatthewDonaldCreator.com with 2 D's. T's again, not 2 D.
Well, there are 2 D's in Donald, but that's beside the point.
Oh, for God's sakes. Okay. All right. You know what? Screw it. MATTD at MATTHEWDONALDCA. I can't. It'll be on the description of the podcast episode.
Matthew Donald Creator CREATOR at .com. Excuse me, at Matthew Donald.
And it's not the creator. This is ruined. Oh my god. All right, so you can email us questions about episode ideas. I'm going to put this on iTunes someday.
Question about it, suggestions for episodes, questions about stuff we've already talked about. Maybe you want us to look at a story idea and give you some advice. That'd be great. That'd be fun. Contact page really also exists on MatthewDonaldCreator.com site. So please, if that's an easier way to do it, do that. Also, I believe you have professional social media.
Yeah, you can follow my professional Facebook accounts at Matthew Donald Creator on Facebook, or Twitter which is at Matthew Donald 64, Y64. I made a joke last time, so I'm going to tell you a serious answer this time. Okay, so back on the Bionicle forum, my username started out as Pohatu64. I changed it later, but my favorite character back then was Pohatu, and I just picked 64. Now, why did I pick 64 back then? Who knows? Wait, that's the serious answer.
Well, I was going to make the joke of Nintendo, maybe, but I don't remember you having
one. Well, we made that one last episode. Remember Diddy Kong Racing?
That's right. 64 bits.
All right.
There it is. Anyway.
Yeah, because that's why it's called Nintendo 64.
No. I'm saying that separate from the Nintendo 64, the 64-bit computer was the thing.
Right, but that's why it's called Nintendo 64 though, because it was a 64-bit system.
All right, moving on then.
So the Nintendo Entertainment System, the original, was 8-bit. The Super Nintendo was 16-bit, and so it kept going. For a while, it was like bits this, bits that.
So the Famicom was 32. I'm just kidding. Anyway,
right, something like that. Something was like something else, I don't know, but then like something. I think it was like the Atari Jaguar was 64 bits. And this was a little before the Nintendo 64. People were like, "Oh my god!" But then people once they got to an Atari 20s, the Atari. Well, I think it was the Atari Jaguar. I don't remember what it was. I'm not an old video game enthusiast. But once they saw it, they realized that they actually didn't know what the hell a bit was, and saw this console that wasn't really that great. So,
well,
that's enough filler for this time.
I was about to say, I think you've heard enough about hypothesizing where 64 came from. But anyway,
oh, by the way, speaking of which, I totally forgot the usual intro to this podcast. So I'm going to say at the end, welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of the Writ, the show where we sometimes do it backwards for no reason at all.
Where us two twits talk about writting. We may not be great, but we know we're better than you.
Even though we forget to do the damn intro. So,
yeah, well, it's
welcome,
excusable.
fellow nerds.
It's excusable because you were so excited about the whole published thing.
Okay, fine. You'll forgive us this time.
You'll have to forgive us. Next time we'll
so
get back
welcome,
to
fellow nerds, and goodbye, fellow nerds. This has been another episode of The Writ. I'm Matt Donald.
And I'm Matt David. Thanks for listening to our collaborative effort. We'll see you next time.
Why am I published? I am not professional at all.